Hello everyone, and welcome back to another Panel from Hell recap with Larian officially releasing patch 8 this week. The three big things we're getting this time around is the Bard class, the Gnome races, and a character customization overhaul tied to the hair available for us. And just a quick heads up, I will be rushing to do a more in-depth look at the Bard and customization updates in a different video. Today we are just covering the livestream. As always, we got a nice little skit tied to the new classes announcement, and of course, with it being the Bard, we got a band performance that actually sounded pretty good. Turns out this is David's band, and they've been shredding heavy metal since 2016. If you're interested in them, I'll be sure to put a link to their stuff down below. They also had a few comical commercials running during a brief intermission, but the main one was actually showing off a good chunk of their merch, which actually all looks fairly nice. They've got even more stuff on their website, and honestly, I can already hear those metal dice calling my name. I promised myself I wouldn't become a dice goblin grabbing every shiny thing I can see, but these dice are making that a hard promise to keep. After a good bit of additional banter, the usual class demo crept along and we got to learn a few pieces of quick info for the new class. In general, bards would be focused on using a lot of control type spells as well as psychic damage spells such as Cutting Words, Phantasmal Force, and Vicious Mockery. And amazingly, each in-game player voice has recorded 97 different dialogue bits for when you're casting Vicious Mockery. So basically, you get to just insult people for damage and make them suffer disadvantage. We, of course, will be able to choose a starting instrument between a violin, a lyre, a lute, a flute, or a hand drum. These instruments, of course, will be used for our spellcasting as well as many magical performances amongst the many different NPCs. And it looks like Bardic Inspiration will be given to us at level 1, which will add a d6 to our next roll when used. In addition to that, it was also slipped that the Bard as well as Rogue will be making use of expertise, which, of course, will allow them to double a proficiency. Next up, the Gnome races are finally available to play. You will have the option to play a Forest Gnome, a Deep Gnome, or a Rock Gnome, each with their own different traits. The basic Forest Gnome will give Dark Vision and +1 to Dexterity. The Deep Gnome will get Superior Dark Vision, Stone Camouflage, and +1 to Dexterity. Stone Camouflage, of course, giving an advantage on stealth checks for the player. And then there's Rock Gnomes, who will be getting Dark Vision, Artificer's Lore, and +1 to Constitution. The Artificer's Lore, though, will actually give twice proficiency to your character's history checks. And supposedly they will also get a little music box that plays the main menu music when opened. All three of them, of course, will still be getting the racial bonus for +2 to intelligence, as well as Gnome Cunning. And lastly, before the livestream fully transitioned into gameplay demoing, we got to see a glimpse of the new character creation updates. Primarily though, the hair system for the characters has been completely overhauled. Just from the glimpse we learned that each of the hairstyles will now be available across all genders and races, as well as more color customization with highlights. One thing they did want to point out is that, of course, they are still looking at player feedback, and just as one example, was able to get the afro hair to be less flat and more fluffy and realistic. With that in mind, we can assume that a bunch of other hairstyles will have gotten a similar treatment if it seemed like it needed it. Overall, the patch will be bringing a few new spells here and there, and a bit of UI tweaking. And of course, like all patches, we can expect a lot of in-game stuff to be polished up in general. Things like animations, models, etc. Also, character emotions will now be better sustained correctly through dialogue. So, if you're lingering on a page for a little too long, instead of an NPC returning to an idle position, they will hold their emotions for as long as you are still there. Alright, and that is it. If you want to read the full patch notes in its entirety while you wait for the game to update, I will be sure to put a link down below. I hope everyone enjoyed the live stream, and I hope you all have fun with the Bard and Gnome races. And remember, I will be trying to squeeze in 2 different videos diving into the Bard and new customization options. So, until next time everyone, stay safe out there.